Attention! There is a person running amok in the operational area. Arrest or neutralize this person and take him away. And don't forget to treat those victims.
On the way! On the way! On our way! On the way. On the way. On the way. On our way. On our way. On the way. What's up? I'm on it.
Medical emergency. Someone is suffering from shock. Treat and remove.
On my way. On our way. On my way. Listening, will do. Das Gebäude ist verschlossen. Wir müssen die Tür mit einer Axt aufbrechen. Immediately. Listening. On my way. On our way. Listening. Okay. Listening. On my way. What's up? On my way. On my way. Consider it done. Yeah? On my way. What's up? Yeah? On our way. Immediately. What's up? On our way. Yeah? I'm on it. On our way. What's up? On my way. On our way. On my way. What's up? On our way. Yeah? On our way. Listening. On my way. Will be done immediately.
Someone has suffered a stroke. Treat immediately and take the victim away.
What's up? On my way. On my way.
Building on fire, caused by electrical appliance short-circuiting. Extinguish all fires and if necessary,
On our
treat
way.
all casualties and take them away.
Yeah? On our way. Consider it done.
On the way. On the way. On the way. On the way. On the way.
What's on my way? Got it.
On the way.
Yeah?
On the way.
Got it.
Immediately! Will be done immediately!
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. On the way. On the way. Yeah. Consider it done. Understood. Yeah. On the way. On the way. Yeah. I'm on it. On our way. On our way. What's up? On the way. On our way. What's up? What's up? Got it. Understood. What's up? Understood. What's up? Consider it done. Understood. Will do. Listening. Will do. Yeah, no problem. Immediately. What's up? On our way. Consider it done. Yeah? On our way. No problem. On our way. What's up? What's up? Understood. What's up? Consider on it the done. Way. What's up? On our way. On the way. Yeah. Starting work. Yeah. On the way. Listening. Starting work. Yeah. What's up? On our way. On our way. Listening. On our way. Listening. On our way. Consider it done. What's up? On the way. Listening. Understood. Listening. What's up? On the way. On the way. No problem. Yeah. Listening. On the way. Listening. Yeah. Yeah. On the way. What's up? Consider it done. On our way. Yeah. Listening. Understood. What's up? Will do. What's up? On the way. On the way. What's up? Will do. Listening. No problem. On our way. Yeah? Yeah, on the way. Yeah, on the way. Immediately. Understood. What's up? Yeah. Immediately. What's up? On our way. Consider it done. Listening. Understood. Listening. On the way. Immediately. Listening. Understood. On the way. What's up? On the way. Consider it done. Listening. On our way. On our way. Consider it done. What's up? On our way.
Ja? Das Gebäude ist verschlossen. Wir müssen die Tür mit einer Axt aufbrechen.
Listening. Okay. On our way. Yeah. On our way. Will be done immediately. Listening. On the way. Listening. On our way. Yeah. Got it. Immediately. What's up? Yeah, on the way. Will be done immediately. Yeah. On our way. On the way. Yeah. On our way. What's up? On the way.
What's up? On my way.
What's up? Yeah, on the way. Okay, on the way. What's up? On the way. Okay, let's go.
Ja?
On the way. What's up? On the way. What's up? On my way. Immediately. Let's go. Yeah? On my way. What's up? On my way. What's up? Will be done
On my way.
immediately. Yeah? What's up? I'm on it. On my way. Yeah? On my way. Listening. Confirming. What's up? Confirming. On my way. Listening. Immediately. Got it. Listening. Yes, sir. Listening. Got it.
Medical emergency. Someone is suffering from shock. Treat and remove.
Yeah?
Oh.
On my way. On my way. Yeah? Yes, sir. Will do. Yeah? Immediately. On our way. Yeah? Will do. Listening. On our way. Will be done immediately. Consider it done. What's up? Will do. Immediately. Will do. What's up? On my way. Aye, aye, sir. Yeah? Listening. Immediately. Listening. Will do. Listening. Yes, sir. Listening. I'm on it. What's up? Will do. On my way. Yeah? On our way. Yeah? Let's go. On our way. Listening. On my way.
Yeah? On my way. Will be done immediately. On my way. What's up? On my way.
Yeah? Will do. On my way. I'm on it. What's up? What's up? It. I'm on it. Yeah, on our way. Listening. On the way.
What's up? On my way.
On the way. What's up? Consider it done. On the way. Okay. What's up? I'm on it. What's up? Okay. What's up? On our way.
Yeah? On our way.
Yeah?
Yeah? On my way. Let's go.
Listening. Will be done immediately. I'm on it. Yeah?
On my way. What's up? On my way.
What's up? I'm on it. On my way. What's up? On our way. Listening. On our way. On our way.
Attention. We have a report of pickpocketing. The thief is escaping. Arrest him and take him away.
On our way. On the way. What's on our way? On our way, immediately. What's up? On our way. Listening. On my way. Listening. On my way. On my way. On my way. Yeah? Okay.
Will be done immediately.
On our way. What's up? On the way. Listening. On the way. Understood. Listening. On our way. Yeah? On our way. What's up? On our way.
Medical emergency. Someone is suffering from shock. Treat and remove.
Yeah? On our way. What's up? On my way. Listening. Listening. On our way. On my way.
Vehicle fire, caused by a technical defect. Extinguish the fire and if necessary, treat all casualties and take them away.
On my way. On my way. On our way. Understood. Listening. Consider it done. Listening. On our way.
Yeah? On my way. Immediately.
What's up? On our way.
What's up?
What's up? Got it.
Attention. There are reports of a violent crime. Arrest the suspect and take him away. Treat all casualties and take them away.
On the way. On the way. What's up? On my way. Listening. Confirming. Let's go. On our way.
Yeah? Consider it done.
On the way. Yeah? Listening. On our way. Let's go. On our way. On the way. What's up?
Roger. On my way. What's up? On our way. Listening. On our way.
Consider it done. On our way. Yeah? On our way.
Yeah? Roger. On my way. Confirming.
On the way.
Yeah?
What's up?
Listening. On our way. I'm on it.
Yeah? On the way. Consider it done. What's up? On the way.
Listening. Consider it done.
What's up? On the way. On the way. Listening. On our way.
Listening. Let's go.
On my way.
Listening. I'm on it.
On our way. Listening. Listening. I'm on it.
Yeah? On my way. On our way.
Listening. Will do. On our way. What's up?
On our way. Yeah?
Will do.
On my way.
What's up? Will be done immediately.
Medical emergency. Report of a circulatory collapse. Treat and take the victim away.
On our way. On my way. Yeah? Listening. On our way. On my way. Listening. On my way. Consider it done.
Listening. On my way.
Attention.
I'm on
We have
it.
a report of pickpocketing. The thief is escaping. Arrest him and take him away.
On my way. On my way.
What's up? On my way. Roger.
On my way. Listening. Will do.
On our way. Yeah? Yeah? On my way. Let's go.
On our way.
Listening. Okay.
Understood. What's up?
Attention. Rioting civilian. Arrest and remove.
Listening.
If necessary, treat any
Let's go.
casualties and take them away.
I'm on it.
What's up? On my way. Immediately. Roger. On my way. What's up? On my way. Listening.
Listening. On my way.
Medical emergency. Someone is suffering from shock.
What's up?
Treat and remove.
On my way. What's up? On my way.
Yeah? Listening. On my way. Be done immediately.
On my way. Listening. On our way. Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah?
Medical emergency. Someone has fallen and is slightly injured. Treat
Yeah.
and remove.
On my way.
Listening.
On my way.
What's up? Consider it done.
On my way. What's up? Yeah? Let's go! On my way. What's up? I'm on it. On our way. We'll be done immediately. Listening.
Medical emergency. Report of a circulatory
We'll be done
collapse.
immediately.
Treat and take the victim away.
On our way.
What's up?
I'm on it.
I'm on it.
What's up? On our way.
On our way.
On my way. Yeah, on my way.
Listening.
Yeah, on our way.
On it. On my way.
Listening. On our way.
Attention. There are reports of a violent crime. Arrest the suspect and take him away. Treat all casualties and take them away.
On my way.
Yeah? Confirming. On my way. Yeah? On our way.
On my way. On my way.
Yeah? On my way. Roger. What's up? Roger. On my way. Listening. On my way.
On our way.
Listening.
Listening. On my way.
Let's go.
Listening. On our way.
Someone has suffered a stroke. Treat immediately and take the victim away.
On our way. On my way.
Will be done immediately.
What's up? On my way. What's up? On my way. What's up? On my way. Yeah, on our way. Let's go.
Attention. We have a report
Got
of
it. What's up?
pickpocketing. The thief is escaping. Arrest him and take him away.
What's up? What's up? Will be done immediately.
Will be done immediately. On our way.
Yeah? On my way. Over and out. On my way.
Yeah, Roger. On our way.
On our way. On our way.
What's that? On my way.
Attention. An incident of shoplifting has been reported. The thief is escaping. Arrest and take him away.
What's up? On our way. Yes, sir. On our way. Yes, sir. What's up? Okay. On my way. Listening. On our way.
Yeah? On my way.
Listening. On my way. Be done immediately.
On my way. What's up? Listening. Listening. Will do. On my way. I'm on it. Listening. On my way. I'm on it. Listening. Got it. What's
Medical
up?
emergency.
On my way.
Someone has fallen and is slightly injured. Treat and remove.
Yeah? On our way. On our way. On my way. Listening. On my way. Yeah, on my way. Let's go. What's up? On my way. Consider it done. Yeah? Yeah? On my way. I'm on it. Yeah. On my way. Yeah, will be
Attention.
done
We have a
immediately.
report of pickpocketing. The thief is escaping. Arrest him and take him
What's
away.
up? On my way. On my way. Immediately. What's up? On our way.
On our way.
Yeah, consider it done. On my way. Listening. On my way. Let's go. Listening. On my way. Aye, aye, sir.
What's
On our
up?
way.
On my way.
Okay.
That's okay.
What's up? On the way. On our way. I'm on it. On the way. Yeah.
On my
On
way.
our way.
Will be done immediately. Yeah?
I'm on it.
Will be done immediately.
Medical emergency. Someone is suffering from shock. Treat and remove.
On the way. On the way. On the way. On the way.
What's up?
On our way.
Listening. On my way. Roger. On our way. What's up? On my way. Roger. On our way. Listening. Consider it done. What's
On
up?
our way. Listening. On our way. Will be done immediately.
On our way.
Attention. There are reports of a violent crime.
Listening.
Arrest the suspect and take him away. Treat all casualties and take them away.
On the way. On our way.
What's up?
Roger.
On our way. Listening. On my way. Let's go. Listening.
On my way. On the way. What's up?
Yeah, will do. On my way. I'm on it.
Listening. On the way.
Roger.
On the way. Yeah. Let's go.
Listening. On my way.
Okay. Will be done immediately.
Be done immediately.
What's up?
Attention. An incident of shoplifting has been reported. The thief is escaping.
On the
Arrest
way.
and take him away.
Listening.
On my way.
Listening. On our way. What's
Roger.
up?
Listening. On my way.
On the way.
Medical emergency. Someone has fallen and is slightly injured. Treat and remove.
On our way.
Yeah. Roger. On our way.
On the way.
Yeah. On our way. Listening. On my way. Listening. Consider it done.
Listening. On the way.
Medical emergency.
On our
Someone is
way.
suffering from shock. Treat and remove.
Consider it done.
Yeah. On the way.
Listening. On my way.
What's up?
Listening.
Will do.
On my way.
On the way.
Listening. I'm on it.
Yeah. Will be done immediately.
There are reports of food poisoning. Treat the victim and take him away.
On our way. On our way.
Yeah?
Listening.
On my way.
Will do. Listening. Will be done immediately.
What's up? Let's go.
There are reports of a traffic accident involving several vehicles. Treat all casualties and take them away.
On the way. On our way. Listening. On the way. On our way. What's up? Will be done immediately. What's up? Consider it done. Listening. Got it. Yeah? Will be done immediately.
Listening. On my way. Got it.
On our way. Yeah? On the way, yeah? Let's go.
Listening.
On the way. Consider it done. Yeah?
On my way!
Yeah?
Consider it
What's
done!
up?
On my way!
What's up? On my way. Got it.
On my way! Listening, consider it done!
On the way. Listening. On our way.
Let's go.
Listening. On the way. Listening. On our way. Will be done immediately.
What's up? I'm on it! Yeah? What's up? I'm on it! Yeah? On my way! What's up? Listening!
What's up? On our way.
Will do.
Yeah? On our way!
Listening. Will be done immediately. On our way. Will do.
Yeah? On my way. I'm on it.
What's up? On my way! On our way! Listening! Let's go!
What's up?
Listening. On our way. Yeah?
Listening! On our way! I'm on it!
Yeah?
What's up?
Listening.
On my way. Will do. On my way. On my way. Will be done immediately. What's up? Will be done immediately. On my way. Listening. On my way. Listening.
On our way!
Listening. Will do.
On my way!
What's up? On my way.
On our way. Listening. Got it. Will be done immediately.
Listening. On our way. On my way. On my way. What's up? On our way. What's up? On our way. Yeah? On my way. Listening. On my way.
Yeah? Will be done immediately.
Will be done immediately.
Yeah, on my way!
What's up? Yeah? Will be done immediately. On my way.
Attention, we have a report of pickpocketing. The thief is escaping. Arrest him and take him away.
On my way.
Yeah? On our way.
On my way.
What's up? On our way. What's up? On our way. On my way.
On our way. On my way. On my way.
What's up? Roger. Roger. On my way. Yeah?
Yeah? On my way.
Will be done immediately. What's up? On my way. Yeah? On our way. On our way.
Vehicle fire caused by a technical defect. Extinguish the fire and if necessary treat all casualties and take them away.